If you're studying for the FARE exam, you're going to want to listen to this. We are about to crack open the official, examiner-approved formula for failure. Now, this isn't to scare you. It's to give you the map so you know exactly which paths to avoid. Let's dive in. You know, it's the big question, right? The one everyone asks when the results come out. Is it just that the exam is ridiculously hard? Is it bad luck? Well, according to the very people who grade these papers, the answer is, well, it's a lot simpler and honestly, a lot more predictable than you'd think. And this is the key. You've got to understand this. Failing this exam isn't random, it's not lightning striking, it's a system. The very same mistakes pop up again and again, year after year. The examiners have basically handed us the blueprint for failure. So today, we're going to walk through that blueprint, step by step.
All right, so let's start at the very beginning. Because honestly, this is where most failures are born, long before you even walk into that exam hall. We're talking about the traps you fall into during your prep. This is it, the big one. If you take one thing away from this, make it this. Examiners say this is the most critical, most repeated reason for failure. It's that classic mistake of cherry-picking topics, guessing that some things are more important than others. It is, without a doubt, the #1 way to fail.
And look how specific they get. They are literally calling out the exact topics students are skipping. Short questions, theory, and then the ones people gamble on, right? They think, they won't ask about impairment or EPS this time. But here's the hard truth. FAR as attests the breadth of your knowledge. Getting a big fat 0 on just one of these can absolutely be the difference between passing and failing.
And hey, this isn't just my opinion. This is a direct quote from an examiner's report. They can literally see it in the answer books when huge groups of students all score 0 on the same question. This quote is a direct warning. They know. They know when you haven't covered the whole syllabus.
Okay, preparation trap number 2, the fundamentals gap. This happens a lot with students who got an exemption from an earlier paper. Without that rock-solid grasp of the basics, things like double entry or accruals, people make these massive errors on what should be easy marks. You can literally draw a straight line here. You lack a solid understanding of cash versus profit, and it leads directly to a huge mistake like using revenue figures when you should be using cash receipts.
All right, let's move on to the next part of the formula. This one's a little different. It's not about what you study, but how you study it. It's all about the massive difference between simply knowing a topic and truly understanding it.
Here's the heart of the matter. FAR is not a memory test. I'll say that again. It is not a memory test. It's an application test. Just memorizing the layout of a cash flow statement or a journal entry isn't going to cut it. The whole point of the exam is to see if you can take that knowledge and apply it to a situation you've never seen before.
So, how do you know if you're stuck in that memorization trap? Well, these are the classic symptoms. Be honest with yourself. Do you ever get the format perfect, but all your numbers are wrong? Or you can handle a past question perfectly, but if they change one little detail, you're lost? These are huge red flags telling you your conceptual understanding needs work. And if you want to know the #1 area where this weakness gets brutally exposed, it's cash flow logic. And I'm not just talking about the IAS 7 statement itself. This concept weaves its way through impairment calculations, government grants, NFP questions, you name it. Mixing up cash and accrual numbers is a massive, recurring mistake that costs students a ton of marks every single session. Okay, so let's say you've prepared well. You really understand the concepts, you can still fail. Part 3 is all about what happens inside the exam hall, the small mistakes in execution that have absolutely massive consequences.
Just look at this table for a second. This is painful because this is where easy marks just evaporate into thin air. The question asks for correcting entries, but the student prepares the correct entries from the beginning. It asks for extracts, and the student wastes precious time doing a full statement. See, these aren't knowledge mistakes, they're technique mistakes that come from not reading the question properly.
And that poor technique leads directly to this, terrible time management. This chart tells the classic story. Students sink way too much time into the big, comfy questions they know well, like PPE or cash flow. And what's the result? The questions at the end, usually things like EPS or short theory questions, get rushed or even worse, skipped entirely. That's a huge chunk of marks just left on the table. And again, don't just take it from me. The examiners are practically shouting this at us. This little insight from a recent report is so powerful. Just attempting every question dramatically increases your chance of passing. Leaving even one question blank is a massive shot in the foot. Time management is everything.
The last execution error is all about presentation. Look, you might have the right answer, even the right numbers, buried in your work somewhere. But if the marker can't follow what you did, if there are no clear workings, no labels, they can't give you partial credit. Markers aren't mind readers. They say it over and over. Partial marks could not be awarded because the workings were unclear.
All right, let's talk about the final piece of the puzzle. This one isn't about accounting standards. It's about psychology. And it hits a lot of students who are new to this kind of big written exam. The examiners actually have a name for it. They call it the first written paper shock. For a lot of people, FAR is a massive leap up from just answering multiple choice questions. You're suddenly dealing with these long, complex, structured answers, all under intense time pressure. And yeah, it can be totally overwhelming. And that shock? It has very real consequences. It leads to panic, and panic just fries your ability to think clearly. Your answer structures fall apart, you end up either writing way too much or nowhere near enough. And that crucial 5 minutes you're supposed to spend planning your answer, that goes right out the window. So there we have it. We've walked through the preparation traps, the knowledge gaps, the execution errors, and that final psychological hurdle. We have seen the complete formula for failure. So now, let's put it all together and talk about how to flip the script.
So let's boil it all down. This is it, the entire 6-step formula for failure, straight from the examiner's playbook. Step 1. Don't cover the whole syllabus. 2. Have weak fundamentals. 3. Memorize, don't understand. 4. Misread what the question is asking. 5. Manage your time poorly. And 6. Present your answers badly. That right there is the guaranteed path to failure.
But here's the thing. Knowing this formula is your superpower, because every single one of these points is completely within your control. So the final question isn't really about the exam at all. It's about you. Now that you know exactly what not to do, how are you going to turn each of these points on its head and write your own formula for success?